Zoom recording. Okay. Not that anyone wants to watch me again. All right. So we are going to talk about adding a transaction and sales flow. So once you have an actual person in contact in, and you've said that they are a client contact, they can be a past seller, a past buyer and seller, or none of the above. And the none of the above is probably going to be the most of your database unless you've been in the business for a long time. So as a new agent, yes.
All we see is your dashboard homepage. Is that what we're supposed to be seeing?
Nope. So let me go back. See, stop share. I probably shared the wrong one. So let me share the right one. Thank you. This one. There we go. I picked the wrong box. Is that better?
Yes, much.
Okie doke. Thank you. Yeah, I screw this stuff up all the time. With the two monitors, you can see everything, so you figure it's the right thing. Anyway, so once you have your client, and you have a client in who is a client and not in the collaborator, because again, collaborators are removed from sales flow. But Tom, you asked, once they're there forever? No, they're not, because you can go to Profile, Edit, and you could go to the bottom, and if you had chosen them as a collaborator or personal, it would have a line around it, and you can just uncheck it and then say done. So that's under Profile. So let's go back to, I want to get back into that client thing, where I am. All right, let me get myself back in here. All right, so I made myself a client, and I said none of the above. Now, if I want to add a transaction, so they're either a buyer or a seller, and you can add as many transactions as you need. So if they're a buyer and a seller, that's fine. You can add them as a buyer transaction. You can add a seller transaction. If you had an investor who bought 50 houses that year, you can keep adding all of the transactions. I'm going to make this person a prospect. And I personally don't like these titles, because in my opinion, this isn't a prospect, this is a client. This is somebody with whom I have paperwork. In my opinion, this is a client. So this is a difference in the way I think. So I'm going to make myself a buyer, and I'm going to use an MLS number. And I wrote it down. Let's see. I think I decided to buy a really nice house today. Let's see, R129 4469. Yeah, so that you noticed, as soon as I put in the MLS number, up popped my transaction, and the associated people. So I could put in my husband, Andy Knapp. And as soon as I do that, I never put in couples as one group. So a lot of people will put Don and Diane with their last name. Don and Diane might get divorced, they might get separated, one might move away for whatever reason or die. So I always put them in individually. You can associate them both in Real Scout and in Engage. So it's much better to keep them individually. And that way you have their independent phone numbers, their independent emails, but whatever you send to one, if they're associated, they'll both get it. I had a case last year where I had a client who his girlfriend was not on the deed, but she wanted to receive all of the information, and I had his permission, so we made her an associated contact. She got everything that I was sending, but she wasn't even actually on the deed, but she still wanted to be in the loop. And if I had additional details, I could write them here. So I might want to say, live in Florida from October to May at this address, phone number changes, this is the work, girlfriend, not on the deed, anything that might be important, I could put there. I could put children's names and ages, which can be very helpful if we're looking at the house and you say, oh, wouldn't this be a nice room for Charlie? if you're working with a bunch of buyers, it's nice to remember the children's names. So it's good to have them, and that Charlie's the 11-year-old and Bobby's the 3-year-old. Okay, so you may want to do that. So then I'm going to say done. And now my transaction will be added, and I'm going to be able to see that transaction here. I got a green box. It said buyer. And if I click on that green box, it's going to bring me to this screen. So in my transaction, now this is where the sales flow comes in, and where earlier we had talked about this gear. So you have this gear for engage settings, which I think it's really important that you get these tasks organized in a way that makes sense to you, because it used to be 69 tasks for each group, which to me is just cumbersome. So I'm going to customize it to what I actually do, but I'm going to put in every task I may need. It's like a listing or a buyer's packet. I'm going to have every form I might need. I may not use every form. So I'm going to have every task I might use for any client, but I may not use every task. So let's say I didn't need this one. I can, on their specific transaction, I can remove that. So I'll show you that. So you're going to want to set up your tasks here. You can add any task that they have, which is a huge list, or you can create your own. And if you create your own, you just say new, give it a name. If you need a description, you put the description in there, and then you pick a day. Again, for me, I pick somewhere between days 1 and 14 for the active tasks, pending tasks 14 to 30, and after 30 days is for my closing tasks. I don't worry about it. Once I have the contract, I'm putting in actual dates. So that used to bug the you know what out of me, but I don't worry about it anymore. I gave that up. Accept and move on. Accept, adapt, and move on. That's my motto in real estate. So getting that task list correct first is going to help you when you're adding transactions. So before you start adding transactions, get your task list straightened out. So let's go back, I say. Well, let me go all the way back. No, I'm going to have to go back into people, my people, because I diverted. I took the left fork. So let's go back to me. Everybody know you can find people up here in this find box. Make it easier for yourself. You just type them in and then find the person you want to work with. So once I have them in the active zone, and you can deactivate or delete. So if you have a deal that fell apart, you can deactivate the transaction. You may not want to delete the transaction. You might want to have some record of what you started with that person. Just have it deactivated. Because there may be important information in that deactivated transaction. I only delete a transaction if it's a duplicate or something like that. Now I see you giggling over there. What are you giggling about? So when I have a scheduled meet and greet, if I come to this little dot, this little down arrow, I can say it was done. I can edit it. So this is where my contracts come in handy. So I got my contract in front of me. I have highlighted all of my dates. I've written down all of my dates on a sheet that I keep inside my listing and my buyer folders, so that I have all of my dates and I'm not missing anything. I have a little checklist, and then I can set up my date that I want this to happen. Let's say I want it on the 18th, and I'm going to say save. I can set up the time. I can also say it was done. I can do that two ways. I can do done here, or I can mark it as done by just clicking on the circle with the arrow in it. That's another way to say done. Or I can delegate it. So if you're working with another agent, or your admin it's a task that your admin might do for you. You could delegate it. If you delegate it, you can send it to them with a subject line. If you, you can also add it to your calendar, or you can delete it. So there's some tasks, like say this one had a well inspection or septic inspection and we're all public, I'm gonna delete that task. So that's how I'm gonna use my contract. So when I'm adding a transaction, I've got my contract in front of me. And I'm using my contract as my guide to what steps I need to take to make sure everything is touched on. And I don't know about you, I'm going through my contract one step at a time and I'm making little check marks to make sure I got everything touched. So I'm going through it one line at a time, because we've all seen those contracts where there's missed steps. So we're trying to avoid that. So let's see, where are we, 11:13. Boy, it does go fast, Nita. So you're gonna go through those tasks. And then when you're going back to your dashboard sales flow, you see I have one in prospects. If it ever stops spinning, it should be me. Where's my prospects? All right, let's see. All right, I'm confused. I've confused myself. Sales, flow, marketing, filters. So I clicked on buyers. Okay, what the heck? Client buyers, I should be there. I don't know why that's not working. It says I have one.
Maggie, do you need to, oh, I was just gonna say, do you need to hit apply?
I did,
Oh,
yeah. So and I can see that it says one. So love when things work.
because it's saying 0 people at the bottom.
Yeah, I know. See what it says here though?
Yeah.
That's the part that's concerning. Recently, yeah, let's go by last name. Recently viewed. Alrighty. Did I not save it? All right, sorry guys, this should work.
It's called Grace Under Pressure.
Or just under pressure. Alrighty, let's see. That's fun. Today, check my buyer, add a transaction. Let's try this. Maybe I didn't do this part right. I don't know. Let's see. Here's that number. Let's try this again. Maybe I didn't save this properly. 129 4469. It's an MLS listing. So where is it? Okay,
There it is.
Okay. We'll leave Andy out of it in case that screwed it up for some reason. All right. So it's there. It's there. Should have been there before. Getting a bunch of emails. Sales flow, marketing. Oh, there we go. Okay, I don't know why it didn't work before, but now we're there. So once you get them into sales flow, this transaction was created and I I can see whatever I need to do. I can log activity. Nita showed you that. We can go to the calendar. We can add a time and date. We can add an activity. We can add a description. So specifically with transactions, there may be transaction tasks, but there may be other things that I need to be doing with them. I may need to call them because I heard from the attorney and they have a question, or their earnest deposit check needs to be, they forgot to sign it. So that's not going to be in my tasks. I'm going to have to call them up and say, hey, we got your earnest deposit check. We noticed later that you didn't sign it. Can I meet you somewhere to get you to sign that, or can you drop by the office? And I may have to arrange that. These can be all of those extra conversations. It may just be, maybe dad wants to come look at the house they've chosen, he's in town, and I may want to schedule an appointment to see if I can get dad to come in, get permission to have dad see the house. He's not making any decisions, the decision's already been made, but he just wants to see where they're going. You know, and I may or may not be able to get to do that now with COVID. But most people are pretty open to those kinds of things. So I can email them, or I can phone them. And there's my phone number, and the email should be here as well. So I can just click on those and go into that sales flow for my transaction. So this, if you're using Engage properly, and first you have your tasks set up, and then once you're adding those transactions, the missing those steps, the reduction in mistakes is huge. Missing appointments, missing dates. How many people do you know that, they had a home inspection within 7 days, and then they got 2 days to respond, and it's an agent who's a little fast and loose, and it's day 3. Maybe you've got a reminder on the end of day 1, to send an email to say, hey, just checking in to make sure everything's good, so that we have everything's moving along. Is there anything happening? Because we're expecting a response by tomorrow. So you're doing things proactively instead of reactively. It's much better to be a proactive rather than a reactive agent. Getting those things out of the way ahead of time. I'm sending attorneys notes all the time, and loan officers, hey, just checking in to make sure everything's fine. And then I'm checking back in with my clients saying, hey, I checked in with your attorney, I checked in with your loan officer. No news to report, just that I checked in and everything's running the way it should be. No questions, no problems. Does that make sense?
It does. I've got one point of clarification. That log activity button, if you do that, is that then saved forever within that transaction?
Yeah, so it's under their details. So it's
Okay.
under the profile. So if I go back to, well, actually, let's log in activity. Let's say I called Maggie on 9/16. Let her know everything is on track. Okay, and done. Now if I go back to people, my people, you see I got a green box, activity added. Go to people, find me. And if I go to this activity button right here, Tom, called Maggie 9/16 to let her know everything is on track.
Okay, wonderful.
And anything that I've done, like if I sent out a neighborhood news, that would be here. If I sent out a campaign, that would be here. I like to make notes on clients. So I use this button a lot. And this is a place where I will add some notes. We talked, you may do it on the activity button, you may do it under the notes button. Either way, it'll show that activity here. I like to be able to call people up and say, hey, Tom, last time we talked, you said your brother was getting married. So how was the wedding?
Right.
I want to have something personal to talk about, not just real estate. So I'm always making personal notes on my transactions so that I have those conversations. because I do like my clients. I do kind of think of them as friends, and I like to know what's going on in their lives and their families' lives. And I think that's the more I care as an agent, and it's hard to care as an agent and keep that separation, right, of be caring too much. I fall into that trap a lot. Yet I have to back myself out in a little distance. But that's the relationship is what's going to get you that business going forward forever. So yeah, this is a really good thing. So when you're going back to your dashboard, the sales flow, as Nita pointed out, if your marketing is just, that sales flow is about people you're trying to build a relationship to get to either their business or referred business. But prospects, my mind, should be clients, people with whom I'm actively listing or selling. These are the ones that are really most important. The ones that we're working on right now, and that we're coming to it. This has from somewhere from day one to closing. So in this prospects category, I know some people use this for people 6 months out. I only use it with people with whom I'm actively working right now. Everybody else I put into marketing. I don't put them in a prospect category unless I am showing them houses or listing their houses right now, imminently.
Can I ask a question about exactly that? So if you've got somebody that you had in as a prospect,
Mm-hmm.
and that setting them up as a prospect triggers certain campaigns like the warm buyer campaign. If you remove them from if you deactivate them as a prospect for whatever reason, they couldn't get financing, whatever it may be, does that remove them from that campaign, or do they stay in that drip campaign? Once they're added into that drip campaign, they stay regardless. Okay.
Yeah, because that's part of marketing. So, so I think of the marketing as my prospects. I think of prospects as clients. It's semantics. But to me, they're important semantics. So, but you're the CEO of your business, and you need to think of things the way that work for you. This is my personal take on it. I like my prospects to be my active listing and buyers, and my marketing is everybody else, my prospects, because that's the way I was trained. Everybody I meet is a prospect. Only my clients are people with whom I have paperwork. So to me, it's an important distinction, and so that's the way I think of it. It keeps my business in the way I think about my business. If you think of yours differently, that's okay. You're allowed to. But you want to do want to get people in the right categories. But the sales flow is that marketing is the people with whom you're trying to build business, and the prospects are people with whom you have business.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason I asked is I had exactly that situation. I had somebody in as a buyer prospect and they couldn't get financing. So I want to take them out. But I know that by making them a buyer prospect, that automatically triggered adding them into that buyer warm prospect campaign, which I want to keep going because why wouldn't I?
Well, you can add anybody into a campaign, you know, and you may want to have a group you may want to edit your group and add a group that has create a group. You might want to have buyers spring 2021, and then market to that differently. You know, and then I like to have a lot of groups. I like to use every open house that I go to. I put them into an address group for that open house. That way, everyone that I got through open to close that came to engage from that open house, I know the price point and I know the neighborhood and the approximate area they're looking in. If they sign paperwork with me, they then move out of that group and into a buyer and or seller group. But I do every open house address. 123 Maple Street, and I might put the price point in 220. You know, so that if there's 3 Maple Streets in my 3 surrounding towns, I'm going to say, you know, whichever town name it is too, 123 Maple or a zip code, and put them all in there. And then if I don't know their home address zip code for neighborhood news, I'm going to use that open house address
Makes sense.
because that's where they were looking. So, and then I've had people call me from those neighborhood news and say, hey, can you switch this? Can you switch that? You bet. I was driving down the road last year, and in 20 minutes, one person I had met 8 months before, another person I had met 5 months before, called me. I had to pull over both times, write down their information. Hey, can you switch my neighborhood news? I barely, the first one didn't even remember having met. The second one I'd met at 2 different open houses that I'd been at. That one bought a $320,000 home. So, and I'm telling you, Open to Close and Real Scout did the heavy lifting. And Gage,
Oh, Maggie.
themselves in buyers.
There you go.
Yep.
Maggie, your audio is getting scritchy.
Okay, well, yeah, you froze for a second for me too. Is it better now?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. So I can't emphasize enough how much business you are going to get from these programs. I'm a trainer, so I'm not doing that much listing or selling anymore. I do 1 or 2 a year. Last month, I referred out 3 listings and 4 buyers.
Wow.
And that's from not actively prospecting. That's just
Wow.
from your tools generating the interest.
Wow.
4 listings or 3 listings and 4 buyers, or
No excuses.
And I have to tell you, every once in a while, I'm like, gee, am I on the right side of this business? But I really love training. This is what I really enjoy. But, you know, I look at the money. There's a lot more money in real estate than there is in training, trust me. But the point is, if you're using these, and I do use them, and I'm adding people all the time, and I'm adding them now because now I have this great referral business going. So, and most people are not using the tools. So even among Howard Hanna agents, you're still going to elevate yourself way over the crowd because you're using the tools. And I'm telling you, they're going to get you business if you're using them right. There's just so much meat here. And I'm not using everything fully.
And
But
I
I
think
do use them.
that is a great point, Maggie, that if you pick one and use it, a fabulous problem to have is having more business than you know what to do with. And that's one of the beauties of having a license, is that we can refer business out and then collect that referral fee. It's a beautiful part of the business.
Yeah, I have a manager locally, in her signature, she says, we're global. If you want to move, I can help you. And she does referrals all over the world. Yep, it's 11:31. Jen's pointing at her invisible watch. So anybody got any questions before we let you go?
I've got one last question I purposely
Sure.
saved till the end. It's a little down in the weeds, but I did not know when you were creating a transaction for yourself.
Yeah.
I did not know that you can go in there. I seem to have missed that and customize the transaction name. I didn't know
Oh,
you can do that. So like, for instance, I right now have an investor who has 4 different transactions running and they're all showing up under his name. Is it possible, so now I know that moving forward, but is it possible after the fact, after you've now got this transaction created, to go in there and change that name, the transaction name?
well, there's a good question. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I can probably I can do this. I can put Margaret Knapp. Let's try this. Investor address 123 Maple.
But is that in the transaction that you
I'm gonna
previously?
find out. Hang on.
Okay. Okay.
So let's get an MLS. Let's do this again. R1294469. And we'll say seller.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I can't because that's a So let's do that. Let's get rid of that. Do this. Target. Do I need anything else? Why is it doing that? I don't know why it's doing this.
Look back up in the MLS number. It's like it's not.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go.
There. It wasn't clicking. So there you go.
Right.
Investor 123 Maple.
Yeah, my question is, after you've created that one, so like the one below it, that you didn't customize the transaction name, can you go back into it and now customize the transaction
Probably
name?
here under details.
Edit.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yep. That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, here's the thing about all of this. First of all, you should set yourself up as a client so that you see what everything is that you're sending out. Secondly, you should go in and just push buttons. You can't hurt anything. So do some samples. Do some practices. This is a real property. It's a $750,000 house, which I don't have any intention of buying, and it's not hurting a thing for me to pretend I'm buying this house. It doesn't hurt anything. But this is one that I would actually go in and delete the transaction. Right. So once I'm done, cancel that. Now I can delete or deactivate, and I'm going to delete that transaction because it's not a real transaction. It was a play transaction. So yeah. So don't forget that under all of these you have tasks and you have details. So the associated clients, you can add as many as you need. So as long as you have them set up as a client, then you can have an associated client. So you need to set up the clients, all of the clients first before you start adding the transactions. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Anybody got any other questions? All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks, ladies.
Stay tuned for a campaigns deep dive next go round.
Next month, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Have a great rest of the week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Maggie.
You're welcome. It's hardly worthwhile for 3 people.
Well, I'm sending an email to the leadership team. Maggie, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sending an email to the leadership team. I went back and looked, and 2 weeks ago there was the links were embedded in the town square on Tuesday, but then later Tuesday afternoon there was a separate email sent out by